What's up, guys? Welcome back. This is the third episode of Creative Conundrums. Weird name, but I kind of like it. We're at the amazing Zen House, this beautiful, beautiful coffee shop in San Antonio, and I have the wonderful Sela here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do you want to just give like a sort of introduction to yourself for somebody who has no idea who you are?
My name is Sela, Sela Major. Acting brought me in curiosity to the filmmaking world as a kiddo, you know, around 14. I got bit by the bug.
I think we all did. Yeah.
And I haven't really left the indie sphere bobbing in and out since. Primarily right now, I produce, write, and direct, and I enjoy the occasional voice acting. I love film. I feel like no matter how hard I try, I always find my way back. And I just love it so much.
I feel the same way. Yeah, I feel the same way. Love it or hate it, we always find ourselves at point home.
Yes,
you know
exactly.
You kind of said it already, but you have a bunch of different passions in a sense. Like, you know, you're doing all these sort of things. In the section of like kind of getting to know you, where do you see yourself going in, 5-10 years? What are your dream goals, your aspirations?
So I think, for a long time, I thought a career in LA is like the only way to make it. But as I've come to learn more about myself, my workflow, the types of people I like working with, and also the different things that come up in life, like disability, things like that, I have kind of made peace with the idea that I think I'll need to carve my own path, but have something a little less traditional than like the full LA path, I guess. 5 years from now, honestly, goals would be to be able to get an agent as a director. That would be like the ultimate dream. Get that DGA card, work as much as I can, whether it be like industrials, commercials, whatever, even episodic or TV, and then be able to make short films and feature films like every 1 to 3 years, kind of things like that. I think that would be like the perfect situation.
Yeah, perfect situation. Yeah, I think so too, yeah. The next two things I just want to say, they're kind of just me complimenting you in a sense. So I think, in my opinion, you're one of the more active and outspoken people that I know. What kind of pushed you to do that, or to be that way? And does that kind of influence the type of work you do in the indie scene? I
think when I was late teens, early 20s, getting my hands on as much film learning and practical experience, camera work, camera ops, things like that in Austin. I struggled with networking, I think, in the beginning, because I think there's an interesting thing that happens when you're just starting out, and it definitely depends on the community environment you're in, but I think that sometimes with the networking or just trying to make connections, there's sometimes this tension between trying to puff yourself up versus staying neutral to what your real talents are and what your abilities. In this industry, we definitely understand and we're very familiar with fake it till you make it. I think the confidence aspect of that is really important, but I also think that you have to temper it with a grounded, sort of centered self-trust. And I think the thing that I learned over time is that I find networking to be more successful when you can offer your services and your help or your energy towards someone else's project, kind of full stop at first, and then let karma, the universe, goodwill, whatever you're putting out there, come back to you in that way. I would say that that's kind of my biggest philosophy, coupled with the ADHD drive to oh my gosh, I'm so excited about your project. It sounds amazing. How can I help? I think I tend to sometimes overcommit, and now I'm learning to really hold space for myself, hold space for the creative opportunities I want to engage in, but kind of always have that centered, grounded position and take, and I think it's helped. I love being someone's cheerleader too, and so I think that the combination of those things has led me to where I am.
You are the perfect steed, in my opinion, of somebody who is just genuinely kind, to people. You're just genuinely kind to people, and your energy and your passion, it's such a good thing to have, because I can imagine you, being a producer or something like that, right? You're working with so many different people, so many different departments, right? Your empathy for everybody, is it's such a big thing, and I admire that from you, yeah. And I totally get it too, because I also enjoy, helping other people's visions come to fruition, or trying to contribute my skills. And I feel like I'm a step behind you in terms of like knowing where my boundaries are.
Yeah.
Because I just keep saying yes, right? Because I'm like, sure, I'm free, right? So
Right.
Of course, yes. But then I'm only realizing now that like, there's so many yeses that you can give, right?
Yeah.
Where I should just, maybe I can redivert that attention towards something like this, like making something like this, right? But like, I totally get you where it's like the passion and the energy and the drive it's so good, it's so innocent, and then the reality of life is like, hey, like, tone it down, like, control that, right? But I totally get you. Yeah. This maybe just be my impression of it, but like you said, your take on networking, right? Or like making connections, right? That definitely isn't the common case, I would say. Right.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? And why not? That might be the common case, in general, or maybe like even in the city, that kind of thing,
I think it does have to do with the culture. I think also like the culture wrapped around labor as well. I think the things that I've sort of noticed with even the San Antonio market is like, so it's really small here, but you don't have to weed through as many people who aren't as like devoted or passionate or whatever, fill in the blank. You do kind of reach quickly the people who are those 3 a.m. people who are like just going hard because of the passion alone. And I think that that's super beautiful about San Antonio. I do think that, my previous experience in like the music scene and things like that here has really shown me that San Antonio is a supportive place as far as like certain art mediums. And I think that you really can find like rich pockets.
100%.
Whereas as far as music goes, like my experience in Austin was like, there's a lot of pay to plays, whereas like I remember when we were gigging here in San Antonio, it was like, hey, here's our tape, here's our CD, here's whatever. And we were like, oh yeah, come on Wednesday. And then if you play Wednesday, you can open on Saturday. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was just like really, really supportive. And even thinking about film, there's a couple of projects where, we were going really guerrilla, really bare bones, and like a restaurant like let us film.
That's crazy.
During business hours.
That's crazy.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
But it's just like they were so excited and they were so supportive and it worked out. But it was like a funny moment. Like you're looking around, we're like, all right, go, and you're like, someone's eating dinner.
It's surprising,
yeah, it is, but it was like lovely and charming in that way. And so I do kind of think ultimately it's the culture that you're kind of immersed in, but I also fully believe in highly influential people and the space is what you make it. And I do think that there is power in the collective and that you can come together, you can grab your film homies, and you guys can change the attitude slowly, into a positive, empathetic, compassionate scene.
Yeah, which a lot of spaces don't have the opportunity, right?
Right.
You were talking about, your pathway in the film industry. But what do you think, and what is your opinion on what is the vanilla pathway for like film media people? And is that vanilla pathway good or bad in your opinion? Or is the vision of it true or false? From somebody looking like, I need to go through this, pipeline to do something like this.
Sure. Now, people would probably disagree, I'm sure. It's the internet. But I would probably define like a vanilla pathway as either probably two-pronged. Film school route, straight out of high school, and then maybe going right to LA or like a larger, like a LA market, New York market, Atlanta
Couch
market.
surfing and just, trying to make it, definitely.
Right, and I think there's nothing wrong with those options. The longer I stay in this industry and the more I talk to folks all over the country, I'm like, wow, there truly is not one path. That is becoming even more true. In regards to film school, I think my opinion has remained a little static. I think that I'm sure there are programs around the country in like niche little liberal arts schools that are incredible and you learn a lot. But I do think that personally, if I were to do it all over again or advise someone else, it might be worth it to go to the top 10 film schools in the country. But if you're not going that path, maybe try going the freelance way. And building up your your
Skills, portfolio, things of that
portfolio,
nature.
all of that. The very unique thing about this industry is that the hierarchy and paying it forward sort of system is still very much there and present. And I think that because, let's say, someone in LA, hires you to work in their mailroom, and to be honest, I'm not sure mailrooms exist anymore.
Yeah,
that was very much a 90s thing, like a 90s film scene thing. So I don't know what the equivalent is now. Maybe just interning or whatever.
I don't know, some sort of desk person.
Personal assistants, even like office interns for like accounting, things like that. I think the folks who are hiring you do a good job most of the time. Everyone has a story where they get screwed over.
Yeah.
But most of the time, people understand deeply what your position is like because they were there. And so they understand that you don't want to remain an intern forever, just like they didn't want to remain an intern forever. And so they're gonna help you find a way to move up if you show your chops. Kind of another tangent related is like, I wish we could establish almost more of a trade school approach to learning, even as formal as like apprenticeships, right? Like, because I think the thing that I find, my personal experience in like a university setting has been, there's been a lot of like film theory. I always was hungry for more hands-on. I wanted more hard skill training in things like camera ops and sound and mixing and post-production. I kind of felt that like it should be like a 20-80, 80% hands-on.
Yeah.
You're taking right, because at the end of the day, I don't think we live in a world where the average person can afford to go to school just for the sake of learning, unfortunately, right? I will always admire, I will always appreciate people who, have curiosity and a desire to better themselves and gain more knowledge in any way, but this is a specific industry with specific skill sets that you need to know and a specific hierarchy to set and things like that. I wish that 20-somethings and late teens, folks who were getting into college, had more of the opportunity to come out of school ready to work.
Because that's not the case,
Right, and I do kind of feel like the smaller your film market is, the university that's in that town is gonna be more likely to focus on film theory and less on hands-on. And you're gonna find yourself potentially in the same place you started before you entered freshman year, skill-wise. That feels wrong when $30,000 to $40,000 is at stake.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
I agree. I have the same opinion of it. I don't regret, going to film school. And I'm sure you don't either. We were, for me, I was taught how to think critically, I was taught how to write critically. But like you said, Berkeley's film, it's just tailored for you to stick to academia the whole way, You're just supposed to write, make papers, basically. And like grad school and beyond. But there's no space for hands-on training, right?
Yeah.
And it just sucks, like you said, you put all that tuition in, and when you finish, you're at the same spot or even behind somebody who maybe left high school and then became like a TikToker.
Right.
And then, you know what I'm saying? And then bought a camera, right? And things like that, right? Things like that. So that always like plagues me in the back of my mind. Obviously, I'm like, I always have a love for like what I've learned and whatever. But like, it's like, I just like see these other people who, weren't taught to think the same way, because film school kind of puts you in a bubble of like how to approach creatively.
Yes.
Right. And it definitely makes you, I guess, more traditional, closed-minded, like, hey, you're doing it the wrong way, that type of attitude, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, that kind of thing. And I feel like it's like a little stuck up like that.
Right, and I think there are tons of reasons to understand film theory in a deeper way, and I think that, it helps pull talent and ideas out of people who would not have been exposed to those ideas, in any other circumstance, but we gotta work. Yeah,
exactly. Like I would love to be, all about the theory, because it's beautiful. It's lovely.
And
it's like
so interesting.
I love thinking that way.
Yes.
But then my heart loves to think that way, but my brain, my wallet can't think that way. Right.
Yes.
So it's like
it's a very apt way to say it.
That's the creative conundrum.
Absolutely.
How do you think social media comes into play with the industry, but then also maybe in your work, and how does like these influx of content creators who are, labeling themselves as this and that, right? How does that affect everything?
The direction that social media has taken was borderline inevitable.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's some tension still going on with Hollywood not wanting to accept or respect influencers. And I think that can be really unfortunate because folks who are at the top, studio executives, they come from the 90s mindset, 80s, 90s mindset. And I feel like the further you go back, the more narrow the industry is viewed. So you're gonna get that more focus on hierarchy, really intense pay your dues. I think that the industry could really do well by adapting and being a little more flexible, because it's kind of a weird example, but I think of Eugene from the Try Guys. I know, so random, right? But like, I promise this is going somewhere. But like, I think of him and how like, the Try Guys have been on YouTube for so long. Someone like Eugene, who is just like oozes creativity.
100%.
And is really an inspiring person. And it's like, he had a built-in following, and it still took the industry a really long time to trust him. And I think that's bullshit. Hey, what are you doing? Like, this person has a built-in audience. Like,
he had more eyes than most,
right?
Like,
and this person clearly wants to talk about important topics and seems very justice-minded. What the heck? Why didn't he get a deal? Why didn't he have people approaching him? And of course, I don't know the big details about it, but I'm, you know what I mean? Like, he's
from the outside, it looked like, he just stuck to this box.
Right, yeah. And I think that's absurd, because even from a capitalist standpoint,
that's what I was going to bring up. I'm like, how do you not see
the money-making opportunity?
Like, that's what you always think about, right? So,
which leads me to believe that it was all that old guard mindset that didn't want to let an influencer in. Yeah. And I just think that's ridiculous. I do think that we need to have a balance, right? Like, I think it's just a little spooky that Gen Alpha is like, they don't want to be astronauts anymore, they want to be influencers. And I'm like,
kind of funny.
Well, another aspect of that balance comes too, like, I have heard of situations where, someone has 250,000 followers, they're 20 years old, they've shot one short film, and then they're being hired to direct a high-profile music video because of their following alone. And I think that's a little weird too.
I see that and I'm like,
what
am I doing wrong?
Right.
I'm in the same spot, like, I would like for it to osmosis better, right? Because like they're so adjacent, and they're like a perfect couple. It's so compatible, right?
Yes.
Like, social media will bring the film industry into the new age, right? Because it is the new age.
And it's marketing. It's, I mean, and I think that there definitely needs to be some flexibility there, some movement.
What is your take on the notion of working for free? This is honestly just like a curiosity thing for me to learn for myself, right? Like, where does the boundary lie, in terms of if you're just starting out, like, when do you say no?
I feel like I lie somewhere in the middle of the spectrum. I don't believe in this really intense, screw your passion project, everyone needs to be paid, but I also am very labor-minded, so it depends on the film market you're in, and I think it also depends on your portfolio. But
true, if you have nothing, do something.
Right, you got to take on a couple free projects to build up your portfolio. We don't hand paper resumes to each other. It's word of mouth. Because right now, like, I'm in a position where there's a couple projects where I do donate my time for free, because those people have donated their time for free for my stuff, right? Yeah. And so I feel like that's fair. But you got to pay the bills. The media and entertainment space, like, I don't feel like has fully recovered economically from the pandemic. And if you're in a smaller film market, you might have to be prepared to over-explain or over-pitch your skills, because sometimes what I found in smaller markets is that people want a beautiful commercial or an ad, but they don't understand the work that goes into it, and so they want to lowball you constantly. And I think that in circumstances like that, you almost have to prepare like a business pitch.
You really do. It's kind of disgusting, but yeah.
Someone who's not in your industry, but like wants a beautiful commercial from you, for example, right? Like, yeah, it's not really their fault that they don't know all of the work that goes into it. but you don't deserve to be lowballed either. So you deserve to be paid for your work.
To provide, yeah.
And so, you know, it might take an extra step to really like make sure that you're not getting lowballed constantly.
You know, the recent tragedies in LA, you know, all the fires and, you know, all the things you see on the news, for me, it's like, it all points to what we were talking about of, you know, industry moving away from LA, which it already has been, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, all the members, all these professionals, you know, have lost their homes and, right, the insurance can't fully cover all these things, right? And it takes years for it to recover. So what is your take on California housing crisis, you know, insurances, things of that nature?
Even like someone who wasn't in the state, it's still like, it's like surreal.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, what?
Because like I said before, it's like it was the combination of multiple natural and like, you know, political, I guess, like tragedies, right?
Yes.
Of like everything that is bad that could happen did happen.
Yeah, and it
like the cross section of all of this stuff, it's crazy.
Exactly, and I'm sure you remember as a kid too, but I feel like I've been aware of climate change and like the impact since I was a child, right? But like, I guess it's one of those things like you never think it's gonna be in your generation.
No, yeah, exactly, right. Because it's always like the verbiage they use of like, you know, like the future will,
catastrophe,
yeah, exactly,
catastrophic language, and so it's like hard to.
You can't really picture that.
I do want to really express like how awful this is and how surreal it is. From what I've read and understood, you know, the labor market in LA hasn't fully recovered from the pandemic. A lot of my peers and mentors have struggled to find consistent work since then. And I think that in combination with the fires and the damage, corporate greed, which has been, you know, driving all of the, it's driving people out, because how are you supposed to make a film when 50% of your crew can't afford to pay rent, so they can't
be there.
Right, they can't be there. You know, like that is not an equation for a successful entertainment industry. And it really like breaks my heart thinking of the global cultural influence that Hollywood has had for decades is truly astonishing. For better or for worse, right? We have like a lot of nasty things that have come out of that. But we have a lot of really incredible works of art and voices that have been able to be heard across the world. I want Hollywood to continue. I do. I see the industry spreading out.
Yeah, I think even accelerated more.
Yeah, Atlanta has kicked off and has been kicked off for several years, right? Like, unless there is tax incentives for affordable housing and ways to sustain the actual laborers, I think
there's no way.
I mean, the thing that I'm worried about and also hopeful about is that California's done a great job in comparison to at least Texas at protecting labor and protecting labor rights and protecting unions. And I really hope that all of the union statuses also move with the industry as well, so that people remain protected. I hope that there's a push for that aspect of it as well as things spread out to other states.
In a sort of ironic way, so strange, right? It's such a trope to have a natural disaster, you know, most likely spark this change.
Yeah.
I want to give you 10 minutes to give me an elevator pitch, to give me an elevator pitch for whatever you would like. TV, movie, commercial, spec, whatever. Like, right, this is your dream project.
Oh.
This is your dream story.
Okay. All right, I got it.
Now?
Okay.
All right, guys, 10 minutes. Now.
I'm gonna pitch my trade school-esque, community-oriented project. Okay, so you know when you're writing, you're maybe writing a script, maybe you're brainstorming, maybe you're storyboarding by hand, and it's 3 a.m. and you're at that stuck point, right? And you're in what I call the valley of doubt.
Ooh.
Okay, so you're in this valley of doubt.
Write that down. Valley of doubt.
That's what I call it, because I'm like, I know I can get through it, right? So it's a valley of doubt. You can get through it, but you're in the valley of doubt, and you're alone. It's 3 a.m. There's no one else around you. No one's up to call you. No one's up for you to pick up, right?
I'm at 3 a.m. You know, I'm typing down.
Wouldn't it be amazing if you could connect with someone across the world and use as a soundboard, use as a pitch buddy, use as someone who can help you Like formulate your ideas, get past that
Bounce-
hump,
yeah.
get past that valley of doubt, right? What if we took a different approach to the film industry? What if we had paid apprenticeships? What if we had a situation where, okay, you want to learn camera? Okay, great. We're going to set you up with Bill Smith, who is who has 20 years of experience, and he's going to take you under your wing. And because you're all union protected, because you're all in this multifaceted program that connects you with filmmakers around the world at 3 a.m. that you can pitch your idea, you can get through your shadow of doubt valley, and you go the next morning, you know that you have a session with Bill, you're gonna learn the next section of lenses that you're working on, right?
Yeah.
Like I would love if there was a collective creative, or a creative collective that blends union strength with hard skill learning and that third component of community that we all need, you know? There's a component that I mentioned is online, right? So like it's 3 a.m. for you, but maybe people are gonna judge my time zones. Maybe it's 8 a.m. in France.
Yes, perfect, yes.
And you have your assigned buddy, right? Your writing buddy, and you can be like, oh my gosh, Pierre.
I was like, I wonder if you're gonna make up a French name.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, you are.
Pierre, my character, Jones.
He's stuck.
He's stuck. What do I do? So far, I could take him to this direction, or I could take him in this direction, right? And Pierre's like,
he's sitting there with his coffee,
and
right?
his
Smoking a cigarette, and he's
he's like, no. Think about your what's your character's motivation, right? And then you ask Pierre, okay, tell me about Marie.
Yes.
Tell me about your character Marie. How are you going? Like, how is that going? Like, and you have this like back and forth, and maybe that little push helps you get over your 3 a.m. and you can go to sleep and then wake up for your appointment with Bill in the morning, right? And then that Saturday, every Saturday you meet at like a cute coffee house, or better yet, a art warehouse space that you share with visual artists and painters, right? Like an environment that's literally surrounded, like the section. This is the musician section. Mm-hmm. This is the painter section. This is the filmmaker section, and you also have like an admin person to help you sign up and pay your union dues,
True.
right? Like I just kind of feel like community is the answer. As things get tighter, as things get narrower, as the economy gets scarier, as social media makes us feel more isolated, we gotta come together. And I think that would kind of be the project or the sort of entity or institution I would want to create. So you have less shadows of doubt moments. So you have less doubting your artistry, right? Like you have an entire group of people.
Yeah, Bill and Pierre, right? Like, guiding you along your way.
Exactly, virtual, right? We got our buddy Pierre, and then we also have our physical friends at the warehouse space that we go to, and our creative collective. Yeah, I think that's what I would pitch. Yeah.
This feels like an episode of like Shark Tank or something, you know? We just pitch this to a bunch of like random like tech conglomerates, and they're gonna make an app about this or something. You know what I mean? And people want to do this, but like you're right, people don't have like the space to enable themselves to do it, especially like the Pierres and the Bills. They love to
Yes, they do. They want to share their experience.
They want to, but then you know, it's just the system's not there. But now it is. We're gonna call this. I know. I'm like, what do we call this? Right? There's like, how do you? Because it's so grandiose.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a word or a phrase that can.
I know, right?
Like I can imagine, you know, I'm like on my Milano, like, you know, typing shit out. I'm on my storyboard. I'm like, oh my god, like, what am I doing?
Right.
It's my valley of what is it? Shadow of
the valley of doubt.
Yep. And then I go to my phone and I open this app called
something catchy and
then,
quick, yeah.
And we I can see like, you know, we kind of globe, and then you see like a fucking waypoint. You see like a message go. This is the commercial for it.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
Yeah, and then you just see like the message go to Pierre, and then we go to him. He's just smoking a cig. He's just like, yeah.
He's like,
This kid.
You got this,
you
blood.